In this video, we are going to be creating a Power BI report from end to end. We're going to be creating a Power BI report from end to end. I'm going to keep this thing as simple as possible, but I'm going to use a real world case study so that you can see how this thing really works. I just want to assure you that if you're trying to get into Power BI, if you got interested in getting into Power BI, but you feel like, hey, I'm not super tech savvy, I didn't go to school to be a computer scientist or a programmer or something like that, neither did I. If I can learn this, so can you. Just stick with me, and we're going to create this Power BI report from end to end. But before we get started, I'd like for you to like this video and subscribe to this channel. Like this video, subscribe to this channel. If you want more intimate time with myself and the community, I'd like for you to scan the QR code. Scan the QR code, because that's going to give you access to our community. As a matter of fact, just by scanning the QR code and inputting your email address, that's gonna bring you in. That's gonna make you a part of our community. What do you get when you join our community? You get the free newsletter every week. You say, hey, I don't need another newsletter. Why do I need another newsletter? It's not just any newsletter. We have a Power BI job portal that's developed just for this community. It's not all jobs around the world. It's not jobs you're gonna find in one place like you're gonna find right here. They're all Power BI jobs. So we're gonna let you know, hey, these jobs are actually here. This is how much money you can actually make, and this is how much money you can ask for. You'll have access to our free jobs portal. In addition to, I hold a free webinar every Thursday. Free webinar every Thursday from 7:30 to 9 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. 7:30 to 9 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. You have full access to me during the webinar. It's a free webinar. In addition to, I have events that I hold around the country throughout the year. You'll have access to those events. Now, I'm going to be totally transparent with you. Many of those events are not 100% free, but members of our community get a discount. And the deal is only available through our community. So you'd have to know someone in our community in order to get access to it, even if you weren't a member of the community. So those are the reasons why you would want to join our community and have access to our free newsletter. With that said, we're going to move right into creating our Power BI report. Yo, welcome back to Power Money Monday. Welcome back to Power Money Monday. Hey, listen, today we are going to be working on a Power BI report. We're going to be learning about a company called NRG Energy Company. Yo, so here's the deal, man. I'm super excited about this company. I'm super excited about this company because one, it is a company that I've heard of before, but it's not a company that I knew a whole lot about. It is a Fortune 500 company, and I am going to move right over and we're going to go straight into their website here, here at NRG Company, NRG Energy Company. So let's see here as we look at their website. Let's see here. Make sure we got some action and got some momentum going. Let's see. It's not working for me here. Let's see. There we go. Think we've got action, baby. Let's see. I think we've got action. And we do have action. So here's the deal. As we are looking at NRG Energy, so as you already know, what I like to do when I am creating a Power BI report, and it's not just me, I mean, it is in general, when we're creating Power BI reports, typically the companies that we are creating the reports for, we may or we may not know anything about those companies, right? Every company that you create a report for, it may not be a Fortune 500 company. It may not be, it just may be a company you've got to do some research on. And of course, regardless of the company that you are creating the report for, you still have to do some research. You still got to do some research, and that research could come in several different forms. In most cases, you're going to have team meetings. You're going to be meeting with the key players within the organization that you're creating a report for. You're going to be asking them, hey, what are you looking for? You're going to be asking them key information about the organization, just trying to find out, what does the company do? What does the company do? How does the company make money? And you're not going to just come out and say, hey, how do you make money? You're not going to say, what exactly do you do? Right? You're gonna be strategic in asking the questions. But at the end of the day, the meeting, the team meeting, definitely the initial team meeting, you're gonna be gathering information, and that's pretty much what it's called. It's called information gathering. At the end of the day, that's what we call it in data analytics. We call it information gathering. So it's a gathering session. Sometimes we call it when we're looking inside of the database and we're trying to identify what the different pieces of data that are in the database that we can use to extrapolate and build out Power BI reports with. We sometimes call that data soup. We call it data soup. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but sometimes we call it data soup. But at the end of the day, the easiest, I'm gonna say the easiest, probably the most convenient way to start gathering data, to start gathering information, is going to the website and seeing who the company is, what the company does, and all that kind of stuff, right? So here we're over in the NRG website, and basically, we're just trying to get some information about NRG. We're just trying to see, who is NRG. This is the company that you've been given the task to go out and create this Power BI report for, and you want this report to be as solid as possible. When I say solid, I mean when I say solid, I mean you want it to reflect the actual company. You want to reflect the data that company would be looking for. So you've got to go to the key players, the stakeholders, and you've got to have those conversations as to what they're looking for. But in addition to, you want to do some of your own research, and here is again a convenient way of doing some research is coming over to the website, identifying what is going on in this company. As I was going through this website, I mean, I found it very interesting in that NRG was, I guess, primarily the owner of these different energy companies: Reliant, Vivint, Direct Energy, Green Mountain, Zoom. And, I was like, whoa, I didn't have any idea of who NRG Energy really was and the things that they really did. I mean, we kind of get in our minds. We know what energy is. We talk about electricity and things like that. But actually, they're a lot bigger than an electricity company. And basically, I'm here in Texas, and really, they're a lot bigger than just being here in Texas. Well, let me go back here. So here on this page here, we're looking at the executive leadership of the company. 9 times out of 10, when you're talking about a company this size, you probably won't be dealing with executive leadership. You'll probably be dealing with C-suite guys, senior executives, but not executive leadership, the CEO and those guys when it comes to building out the Power BI report. But again, when I say that they're bigger than just electricity, I mean, here we're looking at, they deal with natural gas, they're dealing with coal. 51% of their portfolio is coal. Renewables. I kind of heard the term renewables before, but I was like, what is renewables? And is that something you make new again? And the answer to that is yes. I mean, yeah, you do. You create. You're reusing forms of energy. You're recycling, I guess, for the lack of any better term, forms of energy. So this is good information, because now it's like, hey, do I need to have renewables in my Power BI report? And if I need to have renewables in my Power BI report, how do I need to have it? Where do I need to place it? What falls under it? Is coal a renewable? Is natural gas a renewable? What's really a renewable? So that kind of took me down the rabbit hole of doing a little bit more research to understand the difference between renewables and non-renewables. And didn't have a clue that renewable and non-renewable had anything to do with electricity. I mean, some of you guys are probably like, dude, duh. At the end of the day, my bad. My bad for not being, knowing everything it is and know about the energy sector. But with that said, I mean, when we get into the Power BI report, we are going to include renewables. The energy products for business. I mean, what are the energy products that these guys have? What does it relate to? Cost effectiveness, sustainability, efficiency, reliability and resilience, energy expertise. What products are these guys providing? Power, natural gas, load management, sustainability and renewables. Again, there's that key term again, renewables. So that has to be important. We looked at gas before. Now it's natural gas now. So what exactly what do they offer in the products they provide? So here we're looking at power, and just trying to get an understanding of what power really means when it comes to the product that these guys provide. And then with power, of course, when you're selling a product, the first thing you want to know is, well, how much is the product? What's the price? Here, they're asking, what's the fixed price? Those that are in business, we know that you have fixed price and you have variable price. So, what are the fixed price when it comes to power? Let's see here. The percent of fixed and the index. So of course, what that is telling me now is there's a percentage of what is fixed price and a percentage of what is not fixed price, and then there's an index price or an index fee or percentage that is included or not included when we're looking at certain types of products when it comes to power. Where are they providing services? They've got electricity, natural gas, electricity and natural gas according to this particular map. Where are they providing these services? Again, I'm in Texas, but I'm like, hey, these guys are in Arizona, they're in California, they're in Canada, they're in Minnesota, they're in Michigan. I mean, they're everywhere. So I'm like, dude, I had no clue of what this really meant. Now, I guess I probably should have, because again, I did know off top, because of the research of the companies that we're presenting. They're all Fortune 500 companies. And this is a Fortune 500 company. So I should have figured that it couldn't have just been a Texas-based business. Let me back up real quick. Let me say something that I probably should have said initially coming into this presentation to this class. NRG Energy is not providing me with any. NRG Energy. This is not an NRG Energy webinar or class. I'm using NRG Energy as an example, simply as an example, to show you how to create a Power BI report. I'm using NRG Energy as an example, simply to show you how to research and build case studies, or use it as I'm using it as a case study for a Power BI report. NRG Energy, I'm not invested into NRG Energy. NRG Energy is not paying me for this particular presentation or this particular class segment. So please, whatever you gather from this video and what we are going to learn in building out this Power BI report, please understand that this is not going to be a class that we are going to be pushing NRG Energy, whether it be the stock segment that we look at, whether it be the website and you using NRG Energy as a product or buying their products for your particular consumption, whether it be residential or commercial. That's not what we're here for. We're simply here just to teach you about Power BI, how to create a Power BI report, how to research the companies for Power BI. So here's the deal. The website that we're going to be using, of course, this is the official NRG Energy's website. This is NRG Energy's website. All the information that you're seeing here is NRG Energy's information. The investor relations report that we're going to look at in order to study their 10K and their 10Q reports, that is the official information, official documentation, the official document from that's built by the NRG Energy team. It is not something that I have created. It's not something that I bought. It's something that I simply got it for free by going to the website and selecting NRG Energy, investor relations. Now, there's going to be stock information that we're going to be using from Yahoo Finance. That information, again, is official information that's provided from somewhere that Yahoo is bringing in to show finance. This is not a class that we're going to be using for you to say, hey, now I'm going to start investing in buying stock or buying stock and putting NRG Energy into your investor relations, into your stock portfolio. That's not what this is about. So that's that information. The information that we're going to be using for the Power BI report is going to be simulated data. It's simulated data that I created, my team created, that can be used to simulate information for a energy type company such as NRG. So with that said, that information is strictly simulated, is data that we created, and you probably can't find that data word for word or data for data anywhere else because we actually created that data. Anyway, back to the website as we are moving on throughout this website. So basically, as you can tell, we're going through the website and we are pretty much researching NRG. We're researching some of the companies that they own. Here we just started. We're looking at Reliant right now, Vivint, which are organizations, companies that are associated with NRG Energy. We're just getting an idea now. Other major energy companies may also own subsidiary type companies such as NRG. It only makes sense to me if they are major competitors for NRG that they're competing on those same types of levels. So you will see some simulated data that we're going to use inside of the Power BI report. We're going to use some simulated data so that this report won't just be a report that could be used or a type of report that can only be used for NRG. You'll be able to imagine whatever energy company that you are using within your area, your region, even the company that you use for your particular, whether it be your residence or whether it be your business, you will be able to substitute NRG Energy for whatever company you're using or substitute it with whatever company you're using. And, you can pretty much say, hey, I can build a Power BI report based on the company that of your choosing, of your liking. So again, we're here in the website and we are going through just researching, seeing what's on the website, seeing if we, like here, I'm just submitting a Dallas zip code and seeing what is provided to a residence if they were to be in Dallas. And as we can see here, we're getting plans that could be used for a residential location, maybe even a commercial location. I'm not exactly sure if a commercial location can be used, but not only are you using energy, you use it. Not only it's not just energy, but you have a solar energy plan. You've got rollback plans, flexible plans, plans that can just meet whatever need you may need in order to have service or utilize this service. So here again, we're looking at the solar options for NRG Energy, and its subsidiary here that we're looking at is Reliant. I believe as they have it listed, Reliant would be a subsidiary for NRG Energy. So with that said, this is simply what we do when we want to go in and we want to research a company using the website. And now we are going to go over and we're going to look at the investor relations report and see how the investor relations report fits into our research scheme. So here we are over in investor relations. And basically how we came over to the investor relations report is we went over to the website, and at the website, we went to investor relations. And basically, what investor relations allows us to do is it allows us to see here. It allows us to see what investors are looking at when they are making decisions on investing or researching investments into or reasons why to invest into NRG Energies. Now, with that said, again, visiting this investor relations report, again, definitely is not, this is not an encouragement session to ask you to invest into NRG Energies. This is simply another way of doing some research when it comes to invest in NRG Energies. So what we're doing is we're just going through the investor report. We're going through what in some cases would be a 10Q report, and in some cases would be a 10K. The 10Q report is the quarterly report, and the 10K is the annual report. Now, with that said, what's the difference? You ask T, you say, T, what's the difference between a 10K and a 10Q? So if a company is a publicly traded company, and that is a company in which you can go to the New York Stock Exchange or to the NASDAQ and invest in stocks or any type of bonds or something like that, and any type of investments you can make using the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange or public exchange, public trade exchange. Information has to be provided to the SEC, which is the Security and Exchange Commissions, and basically they create the regulations as to who, if you can have individuals buying into your company publicly, or they pretty much are that govern can't talk today. They pretty much are that governing body to make sure that everything is done on the up and up, that there is nothing or there's no trickery that's hiding in plain sight, or I guess even hiding not in plain sight. So the SEC is that governing body. So basically with that, the 10Q and the 10K report, the 10Q is a quarterly report, and quarterly on a business term is every 3 months, whether it be January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. That's the quarterly report. So the year is broken up into, the business year is broken up into quarters, which would be 4 quarters. So a 10Q reports are provided 3 times a year. They're provided in the first quarter, the second quarter, and the third quarter. Now, understand this, the quarters don't have to line up to be starting with what we know as the calendar year being January, February, March. The company can determine what is their quarterly strategy, or their quarterly reporting. So, you know, you could have a company that says, hey, you know, my quarter starts in June. So June, July, August is the first quarter. September, October, June, July, August, June, July, August, September, October, November. No, April, May, June. No, say, let's say start in July. Say July, August, September is the first quarter. October, November, December is the second quarter. Whatever months or however they want to break the quarters up, as long as they have 4 quarters, that's what the quarters. It has to be consistent, right? So in the 10Q report is the report that's provided to the SEC every quarter. The 10Q is provided 3 times a year. So 3 quarters, the 10Q report filings are provided to the SEC. The 4th quarter, which is a quarter, but typically the 4th quarter is when the annual report is provided. So you'll have the first three quarters would be the first 3 quarters they provide the 10Q, and then the last quarter they provide the 10K. The 10Q reports, which are the quarterly reports, they are not as detailed as the 10K. You know, the basic information that's required to be reported is provided to the SEC. They don't have to be audited, at least as of today. The 10Q reports don't have to be audited. But the 10K report, which is the annual report, which will cover the entire year, which will show everything from the first quarter through the 4th quarter, that document is audited by whomever the auditing organization is for that particular company. That document is audited. So as you can see here, this is a Form 10K, which is provided by NRG Energy Inc. To the SEC. So what we're looking at, what we're evaluating here is, or what we're analyzing here is the annual report, again, which is the 10K report. So we're just going through and we're just looking through to see, you know, what jumps out at us. Once you look at one annual report, you know, they look fairly the same. You're going to find some financial information within the report. Not always are you going to grab the information that's in the report, but what it does is it gives you more insight than just the website. It gives you more insight to how this company really is making its money, what the business really is about. Looking at the 10K, looking at the website, you know, you get the overall general perspective, you know, that an average individual would get. But looking at it from the 10K report or the 10Q report, you're looking at it from an investment side. So now you're analyzing this document, you're analyzing this company in a couple of different ways at this point. And as I said, we're going to be seeing financial data here. We are going to use some financial data in our report, but it's not going to be using the balance sheets and income statements and pro formas and all that kind of stuff. The financial statements, we're not going to be using that data. We're going to be using we're going to be using stock data that's going to reflect the company in our Power BI report. So we're not going to be creating a balance sheet or income statement. We can create a balance sheet or an income statement and other types of financial documents, financial statements within Power BI. And to be honest, it really is a good thing when a company can move their financial statements over to Power BI, because it allows them to automate their system, automate their systems. Doesn't necessarily mean that they need to downsize or get rid of headcount, because now they're not having to use as much head power or manpower, HR power, or human resource power as they would be if the systems weren't automated using Power BI. It's just they can redistribute those resources to other areas to do other things. So with that said, again, we're not going to be doing that, but if you come across a situation where you may want to, or you're being asked to automate the systems, creating balance sheets and income statements using Power BI, just shoot me a message within the portal, within the Power of the BI portal, and I will definitely give you some headway into how to make that happen. But with that said, right now, that's not exactly what we are here to do. We're learning the basics. We're learning a little bit more than the basics of Power BI, but we're not going into the extremes and that more advanced topic of creating financial statements, because it does take a little time and it does take a little work. But looking over the investor report here, what we're looking for is we're looking for things that stick out. We're looking for things that stick out, because the things that are sticking out is what they feel, or what the company feels would be important for the investor to understand, or for the investor to know this is what we're doing. I.e., what type of energy sectors are we participating in? Are we participating in oil and gas, electricity? Do we have solar? Do we have wind? Do we have water energy? Do we have renewable energies? Do we have non-renewable energies? Which one of these energies, which are renewable and non-renewable, what falls under these different segments, being electric power, electric, wind, solar, water? You know, which one? Where do they fit? Where do they fall into? How much of those? What percentage of the company? What percentage of the business that the company is participating in, or the company has, is providing energy within these different sectors? So that's what we're looking for when we look at when we're analyzing the annual report, or the 10K, the 10K report, or the quarterly report. The reason why I'm being very, very specific when I say 10K and 10Q is because even though for what we are building our Power BI reports for, these terms could be used interchangeably, because we're not going into such great detail and depth into building out the report just for the first quarter, or just for the second quarter, or just for the third quarter, or for the annual report. But what we can do is, in our report, we can have data that's built out in the report to where we can show different quarters, be it, you know, how much energy was used in this particular month, how much energy was used in this particular month. Well, let me back up. How much energy was used in this particular year? How much energy was used in this particular quarter? How much energy was used in this particular month? And we can even take this down to the days of how much energy was used in this particular day. Now, there are instances where your data could be so detailed where you have it down to the hour, down to the minute. I'll be totally honest, when you start dealing with hours and minutes, and you're talking about data, and especially how much energy, data that we're talking about, energy is being utilized within a given day. I mean, yeah, within a given day, definitely down to the hours and minutes. The visualizations that you would use, for instance, column charts and bar charts, I mean, you would have so much data that it would be so choppy that it could really get confusing if you really didn't know what you were looking at. But at the same time, you could color code it to where it could make a little bit more sense to you. But for the average individual that's using the data, we're using the Power BI report, I would say not to get so detailed down to the hour and to the minute, unless your customer asks you to do so. Because if your customer is asking you to do so, that means that's how they want to see it. But if they don't ask you to do so, I wouldn't get so detailed down to the hour and minutes, and probably not even days when you're looking at building out your Power BI chart. Weeks could be interesting. I may not even go as deep as to the weeks. I mean, when I create a Power BI report, unless the customers ask me for it, I'm typically not going very much more detailed than down to the months. But as we are going through this investor relations report, as you can see, there's a lot of information here. There's a lot of information here. So I am definitely not saying go through your investor relations report and try to read this thing word for word, trying to see exactly what's going on in here, exactly what they want the investors to know. Now, I'm not saying do that. What I'm saying is take this investor relations report, skim through it, highlight the important details, highlight, well, I say important, but important is relative. Highlight the details that stick out to you, and then jot down notes. And as you are going through the database and you're trying to pull out tables, you're trying to pull out information, you may run through tables within the database that that certain information that you've jotted down, that you've noted, jumps out at you, and you definitely want to bring those tables in. Now, that goes to say that is in the case of the customer has not told you what tables they want you to bring in. So again, we're using the investor relations report here to find information, look at data that's jumping out at us. But at the same time, you may have a customer that knows what they want to see. Very seldom do I run up on a customer that knows exactly what they want to see, but I have run up on customers that do know what they want to see. And in that particular case, they can point you to the tables that they want you to bring in, that they want to see reports built off of. Now, that still could mean that, you reviewing the investor information and then you seeing the data or the tables that they want you to pull in could be very similar to the notes that you have. It could be very similar to the investor relations information. So with that said, now you're seeing firsthand what exactly they want to see, how they want to see it presented, because now you have your investor relations data, your 10K, your 10Q reports, and they're asking you for the information that's in the 10K and the 10Q. At that point, that tells me they probably want to see this information that's in the 10K and the 10Q. Not necessarily, again, the financial data, but maybe part of the financial data, but definitely the charts and graphs, the types of charts and graphs they have, the company itself probably likes that particular type of visualization. So I would make sure that I use that type of chart and that type of graph. For instance, we saw a line graph earlier, and it had the points at the different points of the lines as they were, going up and down inside the graph. And I would say definitely create a line chart, and probably even create one based on what we were looking at in that particular one that's here in the 10K and in the 10Q. So again, we're going the 10K and the 10Q because they do talk, because they are primarily for investments and investor information. You are going to find a lot of investment information. You're going to find a lot of balance sheet, income statement type information. Again, we're not going to be creating a report for that, but you can look inside. You can look inside these reports and see, well, what were they spending money on? What were they making money on? And then as you're going through inside your database and you're looking to bring in tables, you can probably still bring in that information that's in reference to how they were making money, how they were spending money, how the cash flows were actually coming through, or what different segments provided the greater amount of cash flows. You can bring data in, and you can show visualizations in that manner without having to recreate the balance sheet and the income statements and the financial statements that are here in the investment relations report. Again, I am not saying to go out and buy stock in NRG Energies. I'm not saying don't go out and buy stock in NRG Energies. I'm not even saying use this as a means of analyzing, whether or not you want to invest in NRG Energies. What I'm saying is we're using this information simply as a means of showing you how to research a company when you are building a Power BI report. This is only for Power BI reporting means only. And again, the website, the investor relations, the stock information, that's all real information. That's all, I'm not going to say real time, but probably real time information. It's all real information associated with NRG Energies. The Power BI report is going to be data sets that will be simulated data that would be good for companies such as NRG Energies and other energy related companies. Is data that we created, is data that we made up, the data that we have that's not associated with this data at all. We didn't pull any of this data in. We didn't attempt to try to use any of this data. We just created a simulated data set that's going to resemble NRG Energies. But as we finish up here going through the investor relations report, we're just making sure that, you know, we don't see any, not that we don't see, but we're just looking to see what other things may have jumped out at us as we were going through the report earlier. We're taking notes, we're jotting down, and we're saying, hey, you know, I want to look out for this, or I want to make sure I look out for that. Important information I think that I've seen here within NRG Energies is where do they put, what types of products do they provide? So what we are analyzing right now, and for some reason I'm getting some feedback, what we are analyzing right now is the NRG Energies Inc. stock report. As you can see up top, the ticker sign for NRG is NRG, which fits. The ticker sign is NRG. The current value as of the day that I created this report or created this segment of the report, the value was $95.76. Now, again, what I do highly want to emphasize is this is not a session for you to use to say, hey, because of power of the BI, I am investing into NRG Energy. That is not what the case is. Again, NRG Energy is not a sponsor of this segment. NRG Energy. I am not a contractor or an employee of NRG Energy, and I'm not sure, but not that I know of, that I know anyone that even works for NRG Energy. Not that I don't, but it's just that I'm not sure. But anyway, this is only this is only for analyzing and making Power BI reports. This has nothing to do with you going out and making sound investment decisions. If you choose to go invest into NRG Energy, I suggest that you do your due diligence in that effort. But we are using the stock report here, the stock analysis here that I simply pulled up from Yahoo Finance, totally free website. You can go over to yahoo.com and select finance, maybe even yahoofinance.com. I'm not sure, but it's totally free for you to go over and do some research for any stock of your choosing. In this particular case, we are choosing to analyze NRG simply for the matter of creating a Power BI report and using some of this data that's in this stock information as part of our Power BI report and as part of us doing research and analyzing data for NRG Energy. Simply here, we're just going through the report. We're just looking at some of the things that they have as returns with comparing their competitors. We see we've got NRG, TLN, VST. Not necessarily sure who all of those guys are, because again, I really didn't know a whole lot about NRG until I created this report and started doing this research and using these mechanisms to do the research. I just thought it was just an electricity company, to be honest, but it seems to be a whole lot more than just that, and it seems to be a lot more than I just figured for it to be a Texas-based company. This joker definitely seems to be an international, a huge international business. And I guess I probably should have figured that out when I saw it was a Fortune 500 company, but who knows? I just build Power BI reports, data analyst, business developer, right? So not that I'm supposed to know everything about NRG Energy. But again, here we're just doing some analysis here, other companies that we probably could do some research on if we want to go a little bit in depth, a little bit more in depth when it comes to comparing NRG and the type of visualizations that we may want to use. Here we're just, scrolling back through, seeing is there anything that we have missed out on, anything that we've left out on. We've got companies we can compare. We've got performance analysis that we can use. Here we've got stories about the company, very recent stories about the company that have been in the news that we may want to go in and do and just read some of those articles and see, you know, what the world is saying about NRG Energies, and you know, what is the business, what's the business news behind NRG. So that's kind of why we're here, looking at the stock info. We're currently looking at financial data when it comes to Yahoo Finance and information on NRG. So, you know, the one thing I don't want to do is say we're going to create a bunch of graphs and line charts and bar charts. Well, we are going to create those charts as visualizations, but as far as the stock data and, you know, the increase and decrease, the highs and lows, the valleys, the peaks for stock, that's not what we're looking for. We're not creating that type of data. Now we can well, let me back it. If it was a financial business, a financial company, that may be something they ask us to do. But that's not something that we want to try to provide in our Power BI reports, unless the customer is asking for that specific information. So now what we're doing is we're looking over at the historical data for NRG Energies. Looks like the date that I pulled this information was March 27, 2025. And basically this historical data is going to go back 1 year. It's going to go back every day for 1 year. And we're going to look at the open, the high, the low, the close, the volume for each day from March 27, 2025 back to March 27, 2024, or it may say March 28, 2024. Not sure how they calculate that 365 days. But bottom line is, what we're doing is we're going back in time now. We're looking at the highs, the lows, the opens, and the closes for NRG Energy. As we can see here, you know, January 15, 2025, looks like it was at 103. January 14th, it was at 104. So that 104 looks like it was somewhere around the highest I've seen energy in this particular report. Going back to October 2024, we see that it's in the 80s range. We go back to September, it's in the 70s range. September, it kind of moves around 70s and 80s. August, it's in the 80s range. August, it's 70s, 80s range. July, it's in the 70s range throughout July, 77, high 70s. And we move into June, it bounces around 80, low 70s, 80s, 70s, mid 70s. Then May, we're in the 70s. April, we're in the 70s. But look, March 28, 2024, this bad boy was $66.40. March 28, 2024, this bad boy was $66.40. And I think the day we say that we pulled this report within the last few days, here in 2025, March 27th, it's up to $95.76. So again, I'm not encouraging you to go out and buy NRG stock, right? I'm not encouraging you to go out and buy NRG stock. This is not a stock class. I'm not telling you to go buy NRG stock, but I'm not telling you not to go do it either. But just, you know, just sound math, right? I mean, it's like you had bought some NRG back in March 28th, 2024, up to March 27, 2024, up to March 28, 2025. You've probably been making somewhere close to $30 per share on your stock. That's pretty good. I guess that's pretty good. I mean, I don't own any NRG. I own some stock, but I don't own NRG. But it looks pretty good. It looks like it's a pretty solid company, man. It's like they done made some money. And you know, as you're building your Power BI report, you know, you want to go through the products and you want to see, you know, what products sold, what sectors provided to the health of this organization, right? $30 per share may not be healthy, right, to some. And again, 66.40 to 95.76, not all the way close to $30 a share, but there was some times in here, as I saw that where you would hit $104, right? I mean, that's crazy. I don't know. I don't know. it just sounds good to me. But again, I'm not pushing NRG. I'm not pushing NRG. I'm just looking at the numbers. That's all I'm doing. I was watching this one guy, and I was listening to him. He said something like, "Men lie, women lie, but numbers don't." Right? Numbers are what they are here. Anyway, so I'm just using the stock data here, the financial data here from Yahoo Finance to do some analysis, create some analysis of what I want to see in my Power BI report. But with that said, we are going to jump on over and get busy, get started into actually building out our Power BI report. We're going to jump right over and start building out our Power BI report. So we had a chance to review the website as a part of company review. We reviewed the investor relations. We reviewed the stock information, and now we have the data that we need. We're going to go over and we are going to begin building out our Power BI report. So we are jumping right over here into the Power BI report. And I'm getting a little feedback, so let's see if we can change that a little bit. Okay, so we're jumping right over here into the Power BI report, and we are going to initially be looking here at the data view, or not the data view, at the model view. But before we get too deep into the model view, what we want to do is we want to analyze the data here in the data view. And, you know, I really found this to be a very interesting report as we were building it out. There are several tables that we're going to be using that the calendar table, we're going to continue to use the calendar table. But we've got tables that we're going to be using that are going to be referencing, several tables that are going to be referencing the calendar table. And we have several tables that are going to be referencing product and I'm not going to say service, maybe service, product and service, but, you know, tables that are more specifically aligned with the energy sector. So as you can see here in this table, we're looking at a table that has the date, it has the plant ID, it has the energy source, it has the generated, I think MWH, which is metric. Let me double check. I want to make sure I'm giving you the right information because this is really important when it comes to this particular industry. So I want to make sure MWH. Let's see, what is that? And it stands for megawatt hour. MWH, capital M, capital W, lowercase h, stands for megawatt hour. And basically what that is that's the amount of energy that is either generated, based on this report, we're talking about generated, and we're going to be talking about consumed megawatt hours. So basically the amount of megawatt hours that are generated the amount of megawatt hours that are generated and the amount of megawatt hours that are consumed. And as I look here, it says a megawatt is a unit of power representing 1 million watts. A megawatt is 1 million watts. So, you know, if you go out and you buy a light bulb, you know, if you got a 40-watt light bulb or a 50-watt light bulb, you know, imagine 1,000 of those light bulbs, or not 1,000, 1 million of those. Well, not even 1 million. If you take 1 million divided by 40, and you know, that's what you get. Bottom line is that's how you measure it. That's what they're using to measure energy. Energy is measured here in megawatt hours. So of course that's going to be very important to this particular customer, with this particular client, because that client is going to know, you know, how many megawatt hours are being generated, how many megawatt hours are being consumed, and of course the generated piece is how much the company is producing out to a customer or to a group of customers or to a city or whomever it may be, and the consumed is how much the end customer is using that energy. For instance, if you leave your light, you turn your lights on in your house, now you're consuming energy. You turn on the lights in 2 rooms, you're consuming energy in 2 rooms. And if you leave out the house and you don't turn the lights off, you're still consuming energy. So that's kind of why, well, it's not kind of, but that's why, your light bill may be higher. And, and that could be a reason why how you can control your light bill, not necessarily your light bill, but your energy bill. You can control your energy bill by not consuming more than what you really need. But bottom line is, this is not a class in home economics. This is a class in Power BI. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a Power BI report to so that a company such as NRG Energy will be able to look at the report and say, hey, we are generating X amount of megawatt hours in energy to our customers, and our customers are consuming X amount of megawatt hours, on a it could be on an hourly basis, it could be on a weekly basis, it could be on a daily basis. But again, for our reporting, we are only looking at but we're looking primarily at the lowest level on a monthly basis. And then we can break that up into monthly, quarterly, weekly, yearly. So here we are looking at a different report here, and we've got, let's see, downtime hours and the reason why a plant is down. So we look at downtime hours, I can automatically know that we're talking about plant downtime. So if we're talking about plant downtime, it's important to this particular client to, like, hey, I'm sure it's important to this client that they want to reduce the amount of downtime. They can't afford that. Man, like I said, I don't like using the word can't, but they don't want to see a plant having downtime. So they want to, as part of the analysis that we're studying within the data that we're looking for. We're trying to find out, how are they actually measuring downtime? Now, I don't think we saw anything in our analysis when we were looking at the stock table or the stock data, when we were looking at the website data, when we were looking at the investor relations data. We didn't see anything that referenced downtime. Now, of course, when it comes to the website and to the general public, you definitely don't want the general public to know that you are experiencing downtime, and 2, definitely experiencing significant amounts of downtime. So now we didn't read through the investor relations, but it is important to be on the up and up with the investors and let the investors know what the challenges may be. I do believe that there was an area inside of the investor relations report that described in detail some of the challenges that the company may be facing, whether it be from a plant scenario or an overall energy generating scenario, or potentially producing for the consumer scenario. But given that we do have a table that's talking about downtime, we do want to go inside the data set and find information on downtime. Now, that was the actual information on downtime, because we don't actually have a database to go into, because that's the we're assuming that that's the database that we're going into and pulling out the data set and the information that we need, and that was the data. So now we jump over to the data view, and we are analyzing all of the tables. And I say analyzing, we're studying all the tables. All of these tables, these are the same tables that we have in the data view, but now we're over in the model view. And of course, we know that the only way for these tables to talk to one another, to interact with one another, is that they must have some type of relationship. So we find first that we're using we're bringing in the plant details table and the plant downtime table, and we're saying, hey, what relationship does the plant detail have with plant downtime? And we see that plant ID is the relationship between plant details and plant ID. We want to keep our relationships on a one-to-many relationship for the most part. One to many, many to one is just a reverse of saying it. But a many-to-many relationship is typically the type of relationship that we like to stay away from. So as much as we can, we want to go with a one-to-many relationship as we build out this data utilizing the STAR schema. So now we see we've got the energy generation table, the energy generating table, we've got the plant downtime table and the plant ID table, and they all have plant ID in common. So the relationship that we know that these guys are going to have together is going to be by plant ID. Now we've got the energy consumption. We've got energy generating already. Now we're going to use energy consumption. We're going to bring over our U.S. states, and basically the U.S. states is basically a list of tables. A list of states within the table that that this company has plants in or has business in. So we've got a region order and we've got a U.S. states table, and we've built the relationship between region order and U.S. states by creating relationship between the regions column. Now we're coming back over to the data. We want to make sure that we're understanding what exactly is in these tables. And we've got the plant ID in this table here. We've got plant ID, we've got state, we've got state, but the state is actually by its two-digit abbreviation. So the two-digit abbreviation is not going to be the same as the state, the actual name spelled out. That's one thing that we want to make sure that we have. So when we're creating relationships between the states, we want to make sure that the actual name of the state is spelled. It has a relationship with another table where the actual name of the state is spelled, and not trying to create a relationship between the state abbreviation column and the state spelled out, the proper name column. So now we're just trying to go inside of the different tables that have states and see, do they have the proper name of the state, or do they have the abbreviation, so that we can create the proper relationships. And as we study here, we see we're also trying to look at, what state is in what region. What state is in what region? Again, if we have a region column, that region, if we have two tables with regions in them or multiple tables with region, we want to build a relationship between region. Even though the state is in the region, the computer does not know, Power BI does not know that Texas is in, well, actually Texas is a little different because Texas has its own little deal going on. I know it's kind of funny when I say Texas has its own little deal going on, but really it does. Really in real life, Texas has its own system of energy that takes place. I can't really explain to you in detail, but it's almost like Texas is its own country for the most part when it comes to energy. So we are now creating the relationship here between the region and energy consumption, and we built that relationship on the region column. So both region order has a column called region, and energy consumption has a column called region. So we created relationships between region order and energy consumption based on region. This is really going to be a pretty, if I can go back and use a term that one of my old teachers used to use way back in the day, it's going to be pretty spiffy. It's going to be a spiffy, a pretty spiffy data model when we get done. So we're still just analyzing here. We're trying to see which tables have what columns so that we can build out the relationships. Right now we're looking at plant downtime. We're in energy generating, and plant details. So let's see, energy source. So we're going to move the calendar over. We're going to move energy source over, and we're going to see that the energy source is going to go. That's a many to many, energy source to energy generation. That was a many to many. So again, like I said before, we try to stay away from many to many relationships. Many to many relationships could work. I don't use them. I don't try to use them. They get super confusing. So I always go with a one to many, many to one relationship. So I'm going to come back over to the data view, look and see, which tables have sources in them. So that we can get a better idea of how to create a relationship. So now with the U.S. states, I see that U.S. states is a one to many to the plant details. So what that means is in the U.S. states column, there's only one U.S. state in every column, but in the plant details, there are several plants. A plant can be in more than one state. So that could be a one to many deal. So we created a relationship between U.S. states and plant details, and we saw that was a one to many relationship. This energy source deal, it's kind of interesting. So we really want to know what kind of relationship can be built with this energy source. So we've got energy generation, and we come back over and we see source type, renewable, non-renewable. So this thing really gets interesting now. So we've got sources and source types. We got energy source means it's going to either be solar or wind or water or whatever that is, electric maybe. And source type, well, no, not electric, but solar, wind, hydro are the sources. And then the source type, it's going to be either renewable or non-renewable. So we're gonna try to build a relationship between source type and energy source reference, and we were able to do that based on the energy source type, based on source type. So let's see, energy source, natural gas, coal, hydro, solar, those are all source types. And again, you're not expected to know everything about the companies that you are building the Power BI reports for, but you are expected to be able to go in and build out to go in and research the type of company that the company is, again, using the website, using the investor relations, using the stock information, getting as much information as you can so that when you start building the Power BI report, it's almost like you're a part of the organization. You're a part of the company that you're building that report out for. Because for the next few weeks, maybe even the next few months, you're going to be the person that company is going to be looking to provide accurate and adequate data and information. So we're still looking under the source and trying to make sure that we've got the proper relationships built between energy sources and energy source types. And that does oftentimes require you to go back and forth between the data view and the model view, and making sure that the information you have in the data view is matching to the relationships that you're building in the model view. And as you can see, we haven't even started building the Power BI report. Well, we're building the Power BI report by building the model view, but we haven't even started building out the actual report visualizations. That's just how important building out the correct models and building the correct and building those relationships and making the right correct relationships between tables. Because once you finish your model view, you should be able to go into the report view, start building out visualizations, and start seeing those interactions. Now, it's not going to be 100% every time on the first go around to where you got all the relationships perfect, but you do want to be able to go in and believe that you're probably about 85%, at minimum 85% of your relationships are good, so that when you start building out samples, that's that initial sample table, you're able to see that those relationships are there for you, and that the interactions are working for you. So that's why we're spending so much time right now playing around in the data view and playing around in the model view, making sure that the model view matches the data view. Because if the model view matches the data view, the report view is going to match the model view, and this bad baby is going to be slick. You hear me? This bad baby is going to be slick. Now, I don't know where I got the word slick from. That might have been another old school teacher that I had back in the day. I don't know where I got the word slick from. But bottom line is, it's going to be slick. You hear me? So again, here we're just looking at the tables, going through the different tables, just seeing what is there. We've got date and plant ID, energy source, generation, generated megawatt hour, target megawatt hour. And what would target megawatt hour be? Target megawatt hour would be, for instance, the company says we're expecting to generate this much, this many megawatts within Monday, and then Monday and Wednesday, and between October and November, and between January and March. This is the amount of megawatt hours that we're expecting to put out. So this bad baby is pretty slick. Not working. There we go. So we're still building out our model view. Getting a little echo again. Let's bring that echo down. So we're still building out our model view. So as you can tell, the amount of time that we're spending with these relationships here, this is within this model, building out these relationships. This gives you some idea of how important building the model, constructing the model view, constructing the model is. The relationships, as I said before, the relationships are going to determine, how effective your report is. And what I mean by effective, I mean the interactivity. Clicking one particular visualization and getting a reaction or interaction with another visualization. That's what Power BI is all about. So that's the main reason why we're spending so much time within our model here, is because once we finish building out the model, once we finish creating the relationships, you're going to be able to have interactions within this report, no matter where you click, whether it be date, whether it be megawatt hours generated, megawatt hours consumed, just different things. Stock days. I mean, how does a stock day compare to the what's the relationship between the stock day and the megawatt hour generated day? I mean, all of that comes into effect. All of that plays a part. So that's why it's so important for us to build out and spend time really building a quality model view. And the deal is, we can create the model view to where it doesn't have to be as complicated. We can say, hey, we only want these interactions. Every table doesn't have to have a relationship, right? Even every date table, just because it has a date doesn't mean that it has to have a relationship with another date table. It doesn't mean that it's got to have a relationship with the calendar table. What it means, but what it will mean is that the level of quality within your report is not going to be as high either. Now, with that said, I know that you're just getting started creating these Power BI reports. So you say, hey, I need to get the basics down first, and I get that. And I'm okay with that. You know what I'm saying? But here's the deal: you run up on a project, and the manager asks you, or the client asks you to ask you why the relationship or why certain interactions are not working between visualizations. It may behoove you to be able to explain why you didn't create the relationships, rather than you figured it would be easier for you to build, right? That's a conversation that leads to a tough conversation at the end. So I just like to say you probably should, at minimum, learn the relationships. Because if you know the relationships, I mean, you're going to be able to talk through these reports. And the thing about it is, when you're having these conversations within your project meetings, team meetings, your scrums, daily scrum meetings, you don't even have to look at your report. And based on, you understand how you built the relationships between the different tables, you're going to be able to spit out some data and some information, some facts about the report and some of the things that it's going to be able to do and some of the things it's not going to be able to do, just because you know the model, right? And I'm going to tell you, there are jobs out there to where all you do is build models. All you do, you're just responsible for the model view, right? Now, in most cases, it's projects that's where it's more than two, it's more than 3 or 4 tables. A project this size, let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 11 tables. Probably at about this minimum could be a situation where all you do is build out the relationships, or you could have a project where all you're responsible for is a relationship. Because at the end of the day, as I said before, if the relationships don't work, the project, the Power BI report does not work. It's no ifs, ands, buts about it. If the relationships don't work, the Power BI report does not work. Okay. And with that said, so of course, if there are projects to where all you do is create models, there's projects out there that all you do is build the visualization. You may even get hired to come into a company. You may get your job may be to come in and to make corrections. Somebody may have a report that's like it's just done blew up, and your job is to come in and make the corrections. And typically 9 times out of 10, the corrections are going to be within the model view. So here we're just checking to see, comparing, making sure that the relationships that we're building between tables, that they actually are actual relationships. Is the region ID, is the region in this table, is the region in that table, is the plant ID here, is the plant ID there. And of course, I like the aesthetics when it comes to my reports. So I want to make sure that it looks good. And I also, you also know as well that I like to build, of course, when we build our Power BI reports are built around the star schema. So, I like to, in my mind, I like to believe that I really have a center of the star, and everything else is built around that star schema. So here we're talking about energy, we're talking about energy sources, we're talking about the company NRG Energy. But at the end of the day, how does NRG Energy provide service? How do they provide their product? They provide their service, they provide their product through their plants. So what I have at the center of the star here is the plant details. I've got the plant details. So, and the plant details is basically everything that's about the plant, right? So at the center of the star, I'm saying, hey, how does this relate to the plant detail? How does U.S. state relate to the plant detail? Because each plant is in a state. How does energy generated, energy generation, how does that relate to the plant, to the plant detail? Because each one of the plants, they're going to provide energy generation, energy plant downtime. How does plant downtime relate to plant details? Because every plant is probably going to have downtime at some point or another. So plant ID to plant ID. uh, is what we're building the relationship on when it comes to plant detail. Now, plant detail is not going to have a calendar because it's open every day of the week, and it's not something's going on specific. Well, plant detail, there is something going on specific, but it's based off of other tables. So the plant downtime, how does plant downtime relate to plant details? Plant downtime relates to it by calendar. What day was it down? And then the question is, well, how does that relate to what relates to plant downtime? So then we create the relationship between calendar and plant downtime. We've got energy source reference. Energy source reference. Energy source reference is not a direct relationship to plant ID or to plant detail, but that plant detail has energy being generated, and then the energy generated has an energy source reference. It has an energy source reference. That energy source reference is actually going through the energy source order. Now, what is the energy source order? That's the table that I created in order to create the relationship between energy source reference and energy source order. That's a whole nother conversation. Sometimes you've got to create a table as a reference to make sure that those two tables can talk to one another. Now, with that said, in this particular case, that's what I did. But in a real life scenario, you could have two tables. You could have energy source order and you could have energy source reference. And at the end of the day, you're like, hey, well, what do they have in common? There's another table out there. Not necessarily, you're not necessarily creating the table in that case, you go into the data set, you go into the database, and find that table that creates that reference between the two. Sometimes you may be able to find it, sometimes you may not. So then that's when you have a conversation with whomever your business analyst is or your business liaison and say, hey, I need to know what is the reference table between these two. What makes these two tables talk? And then that person may be able to say, oh, you don't have X table. You need X table. So, I'm telling you right now, you've got to be prepared to go out and ask those questions because you're not going to be given all of those answers all the time. You're not going to always be given exactly what you need, but you do know what you do. You may not know what you need, but you know what you don't have. And, with that said, you want to say, hey, I don't have this. What can I use in order to make these two have a relationship? And then your BA or your liaison will tell you, all you need is boom, 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 right? So at that point, you're going to be in a good situation. Anyway, so now we're back over to the data view. We're checking the data against the model view. We're trying to see, what is in these tables. And this energy source thing is real. This energy source thing is real because we want to make sure that the energy source is matching our energy source in each one of the tables. And we want to, because it's important that we understand that the source type and the energy source are different. And what I'm seeing here in these tables is the energy source is the sources such as coal or solar or hydro. And then the source type is renewable or non-renewable. And then the question is, which one of these sources are renewable? Which one of these sources are non-renewable? But we don't have to answer that question right here in the model view, but we will have to answer that question. We don't have to answer the question, but we will want the visualization to reflect the correct scenario when we build out the visualization. So here we are, again, we're being real careful with the energy source and making sure that the energy source is matching the energy source in the energy generation table. And we definitely want to do that as well in the energy consumption table. The source reference is matching what's needed in the energy. The source type is being matched with what's in the energy source reference. The U.S. states, again, is matching what needs to be in the U.S. state. And again, with plant details being at the center of the star schema, we pretty much know that whatever is connecting to plant details probably needs to have a plant ID, because the plant ID is telling us what plant is being identified in each area, whether it be the state, whether it be the plant using a particular type of energy source, the plant using a particular type of source type. All that is important because, as you can imagine, a plant that provides hydro as an energy source or water as an energy source may not provide solar as an energy source. So all of these different types of plants, they probably provide a certain type of energy source. And that would also mean that they also are providing a particular type of source type, being renewable or non-renewable. Let's see. So here we are just making sure we have all of our data as needed, and our tables. Again, now we're primarily looking now from an aesthetic standpoint. I need a little drink of water here. Been talking for a minute. So we are looking at everything from not everything, but looking at it from an aesthetic point of view. Now, I kind of like to make sure that my columns are the same width and same height. And trust me, when you get on the project, when you get on your project, your coworkers, your managers, they're gonna be impressed with you even with just making sure the aesthetics of your model view look good. You will be amazed at how many other developers that are out there, or how many developers that are out there that the aesthetics of the model view really doesn't matter to them as much, because it's kind of like back end information. So those that are consuming the reports, the Power BI reports, that are looking at the Power BI reports, that are looking at the visualizations, they're pretty much not paying any attention to or even going to the model view. You probably don't even know what a model view is, but when you publish your report out to Power BI service, for the most part, they're not going to have access to the model view, or other individuals are not going to have access to your model view. So don't count this. Don't count this too lightly. Don't play it too short. It's important, man. It's important for your whole project to look good, from the rooter to the tutor. You want to be known as the person that really puts together good work. And part of your work is creating documentation and screenshotting what you create, and as documentation of what you have. And I'm gonna tell you, it's better. I ain't gonna say better. It's better, but it definitely looks better when you do your screenshots and create your screenshots, and your model view looks pretty doggone good, right? People are like, hey, that's a pretty nice looking deal. I mean, because imagine how this would look if you had a rectangle table here, you had a large square table here, a small square table here, a small rectangle table here. I mean, it just doesn't look good, man. It just doesn't look good. So you really want to create your model view. You will create the tables and that look and feel of your model view to be something to where you don't mind going over and showing individuals in the organization, you know, how you actually created this table, you know, to show them the relationships, you know, and they're gonna ask you, you know, how did you get all your tables the same size? And basically, you let them know. It was table by table. It's not a property setting. I don't think that there's a property setting. It's just a table by table deal. Now, if there's a property setting, please let me know. Please shoot me a message or leave me a comment or something. Let me know that there is a property that you can make sure that all your tables are the same size and length and width inside of your model view. I don't think there is. So, you know, that response when they ask you, how did you, you know, get everything, you know, looking so perfect, you know, you let them know you went step by step, because it is hard work, you know, time consuming when you're putting together good products. So we are over here in the Power BI report view, and we're just creating, as you know, I like to create a sample table, kind of replicate one of the tables that we already have. You probably actually could do this without doing it this way, but it's just the way that I like to do it. It's just the way that I've become accustomed to doing it, just to give me a feel that now I've got a report that I've actually started creating. That's what it allows me to feel like. Doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be this way. Doesn't mean you have to start this way, but it's just what I do. And then once I've got that first initial table in, then I go in and start bringing in other types of visuals, just playing around, kind of like an artist, you know, throwing splashing paint on the report, and then, you know, building the report out from that manner. Looking back over the table, looking back over the model view, and, you know, just checking to see, you know, what kind of relationships I actually have here. Let's see here. Just playing around, just, you know, double checking my models, seeing, you know, which models I have, which tables I have in the model, how I'd like to show. Just give me an idea, a feel for how I may want to show different visuals in the model, or inside the table, inside of the report. Put in a little drop-down slicer by region. You know, just getting some idea. I mean, it's a lot of information that's inside of this actual report. You know, looking at it from the data view, looking at the model. You know, there's a lot of information here. There are a lot of different visualizations that you can use on this report. So, you know, right now I'm just trying to get a feel for what works, what doesn't work. You know, how are the visualizations interacting with one another. So I'm using the drop-down slicer, which is showing me the area, showing me the regions: Midwest, Northeast, Southeast, Texas, and West. You know, and again, you know, I thought it was kind of not necessarily funny or weird, but I thought it was interesting that Texas was considered a region. Again, I didn't know that this company really was, I didn't know to what degree this company was as far as size, but I did know it had to be a fairly big company because it is a Fortune 500 company. But I didn't, you know, being here in Texas, I was thinking this was just a Texas-based energy company. But of course, as we saw when we were going through the investor relations and going through the website, that the company actually is an international company. And again, as I said before, I probably should have picked that up given that it was a Fortune 500 company. I just didn't think of it in that manner. But, you know, the regions of being Midwest, Northeast, Southeast, West, and Texas. Like, Texas is a state, but, you know, Texas is a pretty big state. And we do out here in Texas have a lot of stuff that, you know, we consider to be Texas, and, you know, Texas is its own country in some some conversations. So, you know, it's interesting, but maybe it's because it's headquartered in Texas. I'm not sure. Didn't really get into that level of detail inside of the 10K, the TNQ Investor Report, and even on the website. I didn't really pay any attention, but I have a feeling that it probably is a Texas-based company, and, you know, Texas itself is considered to be a region in this with this particular company. Texas is considered to be in this particular visual. Well, let me back up again. This report is not the actual report of this company. It's not an actual. This information is not actually built off of information or data that is from this particular company. This report is simply built off of a simulation that me and my team put together. So, you know, Texas doesn't necessarily have to be a region in this company, but it did appear that there was Texas, there was everywhere else, there was Canada. So, you know, with that said, it is what it is. Again, this is just a simulation. This is not a report that I'm putting together officially for NRG Energy Company. This is not a report that NRG Energy Company asked me to put together. This is simply a report that I'm creating to show you how to create a Power BI report and to use major companies in order to do so. And this particular company that we're using is NRG Energy. I'm going to grab me another sip of water here. All of this talking really has me going, right? So what we're doing now is we're just simply finding visuals that we think may look good with the data that we have. And at the end of the day, you know, when we're creating a Power BI report, that's what we do. We simply create. It's trial and error. Which visual do we think looks best for the particular type of data that we have? And then when we find that visual, then we want to kind of, you know, give it like a design feel and see what's the best area, the best layout for the visualizations that we've selected. So we've got our slicer, our drop down slicer. We're pulling in another drop down slicer. Actually, we're pulling in a calendar, a slider, a date slider, and we've got the table that we have. None of these have to be what we're going to use. It's just us playing around. The most important thing so far has been making sure that the model view and the relationships within the model view are accurate. That's been the most important up to this point. And then once we did that, we started bringing in the information. We started bringing in the visualizations for the report in the report view. And then we started playing with it, as we see here, bringing in different visualizations. And as you can see here, the visualization that we have here in the top, which is a bar chart, you know, that bar chart, the bar chart we have, you know, it's too much information there. That's why we have so many wiggly lines. And actually, it's really a bar, but because it's so much data within that bar chart, it's appearing to be a lot of slices going back and forth, almost kind of like a weather report or something. But that's not what it really is. It really looks like a bar right here, but it's a lot of thin slices. And that's kind of what I was saying before when it comes to having so much data. When you do it down to the second, down to the minute, down to the day, even down to the week, that's the type of visualization that we get. So you know, that's why I kind of like to keep my data the visualizations down to the month, and we can, look at it by the month, look at it by the quarter, look at it by the year. It's a much cleaner look. Now, with that said, again, if the customer is asking you for that information by the day, by the hour, by the minute, yeah, of course you provide it in that case. But in this particular case, we're going to try to get this down to the month. Now, when we're talking about, say for instance, we're looking at data in an energy company. So if you can imagine, we're talking megawatt hours. This could be megawatt hours based on the energy that this company sells to the city. This could be megawatt hours that this company sells to an individual house. So let's just say if we're selling it to the city, right? We're selling it to the state. Let's just keep it at the city. How much energy has to be sold to the city, right? So, when you're looking at it by the minute, by the second, by the hour, it's a lot of data. It's a lot of information, right? But when we're looking at it by the month, now we're able to kind of really put our hands around this thing and wrap it up and hug it and squeeze it and call it George. Some of you guys probably don't know that old cartoon where the big bear, the big monster would say, "I want to love you and hug you and squeeze you and call you George." Yeah, I know it's kind of wild. Yeah, you could tell I'm, getting a little lightheaded. Got a call here coming in, but I'm not going to answer it. I'll give them a call back in a little bit. Because we're going over class information, how to build a Power BI report, and that's what's hot. So as you can see here, I am simply trying to see, what is the best data to use, the best well, not data, but the best visualizations to use. I kind of like this bar chart because I keep playing with it, keep changing the different colors, but I got to get it down to the point to where we're looking at it and it's not so many different shades of colors, and it's not too big, and we can actually read it and put some information behind it. So I'm going to come down to the date, to the date area here on the y-axis, and I really want to get this thing to where I can really get some measurement, we'll get some cool visualization behind it. So the one thing about dates is, one, you want to format the date, right? You want to format the date. So, as we can see here, we've got the date formatted by, MM00. So it's 2-digit day, 2-digit month, 4-digit year. We can change that date in the date hierarchy, so that we could see it simply, in a smaller, not a smaller scale. I don't know if that's the right thing to say, but so that we can see it rather than by that 2-digit day, 2-digit month, 4-digit year, to where we can change the date hierarchy, and we can see it according to what I just called out as being just month, quarter, and year. And we can actually drill down into it and even see it even better by month, quarter, and year. But let's play with another little visualization here. Let's see how this visual comes out. We're going to use date on the y-axis, and count of energy source. That's kind of wild. That's kind of different. Not necessarily sure if that's the right measure we want to use to look at this particular visual. This one, even though the other one is kind of chopped up, this one looks a little weird when we go by count of energy source. I mean, what does that really mean, the count of energy source? But we'll get this thing figured out. I mean, because there's a lot of information. There's a lot of information in this in this data. Now here we go. This is a better feel. This is a better look for what we could actually be looking for when it comes to the bar, and now it's making sense. We can look at it and we can actually tell, you know, what we're doing here as opposed to all of those little bitty pieces. So that's what I meant by, you know, it looked almost like zigzagging lines and a whole bunch of information and not necessarily being able to tell. But now we're getting to the point to where we can actually look at this particular visualization and be like, yeah, that makes sense to me. That makes sense. So as we move on along and along, not alone, but as we move on along and we continue to build out the Power BI report, we're pretty much now down to our aesthetic phase, our architectural phase, our visual layout design phase, and we're trying to see what visualizations have the best fit, or where do we need to make some of the visuals smaller? Do we need to make some of the visuals larger? And of course, we're still to the point to where we don't really have all of the visuals that we want here. You know, again, I like to have no more than 6 visuals on a page, but well, let me say, I'm gonna say my rule of thumb. I normally say I only like to have 6 visuals on a page, but my rule of thumb is about 6 visuals. So if I get somewhere between say 5 and 10, I guess I would be okay. But you have to have, you definitely have to have a good layout. You can't just have them jumbled on the page. Of course, you know, our Power BI reports, we want them to reflect the company as much as possible, giving it that website look, that website feel, but at the same time, it's giving some information that the organization is looking for. And when we're talking about a Power BI report, the Power BI reports, they could be for any department. It could be a master overview report to where we have several different departments that are have visualizations on one page, or for instance, we could have just information about accounting and finance on the page. We could have information just about marketing. We could have information just about human resources. It just really depends. I mean, we can have the Power BI report really can resemble whatever organization you are trying to create the report for. That's why it's very important to stay in contact with the decision makers and having meetings with the decision makers and see what they're looking for, because you know you very well could come up with a what I would call a slick Power BI report, but it could be worthless because it's something that particular individual or that particular department may not be looking for, right? So you know that's the caveat, I guess, or the hang up to creating a cool Power BI report. So what we're doing here, we're just bringing in different visualizations, trying to get some idea of, you know, how many visuals we can place on the page. If we bring more visuals in, you know, what visualizations are we trying to cover? As you can see, we have a drop-down slicer that already has regions in it. Now we're bringing in a drop-down slicer and it's got states in it. So do we want a drop-down? Do we want to have 2 drop-down slicers, one with region, one with state? And of course, if we select one of the regions, it will show all of the states within that particular region, or it should, if we've created or set up the relationships the way that they should be set up. The relationships are set up the way they should be. The visualization should interact with one another. We should be able to see interaction going on between all of the visuals when we click one visualization. I think I need some water. This is pretty long, but it's a lot of information, a lot of good information. Back over in, excuse me, back over in the data view, looking at the data, confirming that the data and the model relationships are where they need to be, coming back over and testing out the table. We're testing out the drop down slicer and seeing how it interacts with the columns and the bar charts, coming back over to the data view and excuse me, coming back over to the data view to see, make sure that the data that we have, or to not necessarily make sure, but to see what data we have in the different tables to determine, what visualizations we want to see. Because what I did was I took the table view, the table visualization off of the report view. So, now I have to come back over to the data view to see what's actually in those tables. I could actually go back into the report view and bring the table in, and then create a table resembling the table that's inside the data. But that's not where we are right now. Now we're back inside the model view, and we're just looking through the model view, seeing how the relationships are making sure that the relationships are where they need to be, because we're getting some idea of what type of visualization we want. But of course, if those we can bring those visualizations in, and we can create those visualizations. But if they're not interacting, if those models are not set up correctly, all we're going to have is a pretty picture. That's all we're going to have is a pretty picture, and it might not even be a pretty picture. So as you can see, if we select the Southwest region, there is nothing in that bottom visualization pertaining to the Southwest region. Therefore, that visualization just went blank. So we do know that visualization is interacting with the region, but for some reason that visualization went blank, and we would think that we would have some information that would be available in every visual, and not have a blank visual or have a visual that turns blank if we select a particular slicer or element from a slicer. So those are some things that we need to work through. We need to make sure that the relationships are set up correctly, or if those visuals really don't interact with each other, we probably need to remove the visual. Because again, the customer wants to see interactions. Now, the customer could say, hey, I don't expect to see any interaction between these two visuals or these two elements, because there's no relationship that you can create for those two or multiple visualizations. But if they don't give you those specific instructions, you probably want to make sure that those visualizations are interacting with one another. So you want to check your data view, make sure you got the data that you're looking for. Again, you can do this by creating the table inside of Power BI, inside the report view, creating a table, and the table that resembles the table that you have in the data view. But now, as you can tell, we've brought in several visuals. So in order for us to create that table that we probably want to, analyze the data from, or see if the data is there, or see what type of interactions we're getting based on the data in the table, we don't have the room, because now we've got several visualizations that are here. We've got the drop down, the calendar drop down showing the year. We've got the drop down for the region. We've got the drop down for the state. All of these visualizations we may or we may not keep. We probably won't need all of them, but for right now, this is what we have. So in order for us to really analyze what's inside those tables now, we've got to go back over to the table view. Well, we could go over to the right, and we could drop down the tables here in the report view, but it doesn't really give us that table look. So that table field, seeing exactly what are in those columns, and the values that are in the columns, it really gives you a better sense of what data is there and what type of interactions you may want to see or you should be seeing, or what type of visualizations you want to see based on the interactions you believe you should have. So now, as you can tell, we selected 2025, and that data reflected in both of those bar charts. Now we are kind of trying to really get some spacing, create the real estate on the page, get some spacing between the visualizations, get the visualization showing the best possible representation that we could probably get. So now the question is, do we need to shorten the visuals? Do we need to widen the visuals? Do we keep two visuals? And you already know that I very seldom like to use visualizations, use the same type of visualization multiple times on a page. For instance, 2 bar charts. As we can see in this particular report, we have 2 bar charts. But what I did do is I actually looked at a report where actually I saw a person that I follow online. I saw a Power BI report that she created, and it had two of the same visualizations representing 2 different sets of data. And I was like, yo, that was kind of slick. And I've never really wanted to do that. And I never really thought about doing it. So now what I'm looking at now is, what if I create a report that has two similar visualizations? And in our case here, we're looking at 2 bar charts. So now I'm going to bring in the column chart here at the bottom, and it's just a matter of what's the best way to bring in this data. What do we really want to see here? Right now we're looking at summer capacity, megawatt hours by plant ID. There are a lot of plants, so we're gonna do a lot of scrolling. It's kind of hard to see the difference in capacity megawatt hours because we have so many that are so close together in the amount of megawatt hours that we are displaying within this particular visualization. So I do know that what we will probably need to end up doing is reducing the amount of plant IDs that we're showing to really be able to show a good representation of the visualization here on the Power BI report. So coming back in, I'm in the plant details table, and I just want to see, what all is in this plant details table: the plant ID, the megawatt hours, what exactly is here, so that we can determine how we want to actually see this. So now, as you can see, I'm dragging the I'm dragging the bar down at the bottom so that you can see that this is not just a visualization that everything is the same height or has the same value, but we have so many plants, and each plant is represented by a plant ID. We have so many plants that many of the megawatt hours are very similar. So with that said, we are we're gonna have to filter this thing so that we can reduce the amount of plants that we're seeing, so that we can actually see a good difference inside the data. So what we did was we filtered by the top 25 plants. Now it's looking better just looking at 25 plants, looking at the top 25 plants. This is still quite a few plants coming across in this visualization. It could work, it could not work, it just depends. Right now we're going to work on the real estate. We're going to see what's really working for us, what's not working for us, and starting to build this thing out. And of course, as I like to do, I like to use colors that the company uses. I like to bring in the company's logo on the report. I think it's very important for when you're creating a Power BI report that the Power BI report reflects and feels very much like the logo of the company. Well, not the logo, but the website and the design aesthetics of the company. So we are back over here just trying to identify the real estate, trying to see where visualizations fit best on the report. Again, not necessarily locked into this being the actual or the final visuals that we're going to go with, but at the same time, the size of the visualization is going to matter, because we can replace the visual with another visual. We can replace the visual with another visual once we get an idea of the spacing for each particular one. Here I am actually bringing in a visual now that I haven't brought in on other videos or other classes. And as you will see here, this visual kind of looks like a map. And in fact, that's what it actually is. It's actually the map visual. And, you know, given that NRG Energy is located in several areas, again, one that I really didn't or really wasn't aware of. I thought it was really just a Texas-based company. But we know now that NRG Energy is in, if not all of the states, most of the states, and in Canada, maybe somewhere in Europe, I don't know. But again, given that this is not the official representation of NRG Energy's data set, I did want to kind of make it have the look and feel of what could be used for NRG Energies or any other energy company. So we want to be able to show in our Power BI report to those that feel that they need, well, for those that are interested in our Power BI report within the organization, like, hey, you know, these are the locations that we are, and even be able to show, you know, where the densities, the densest populations of the country that we are located. Now, we're only going to be showing the United States on our map. We're not going to be showing other countries and Canada and the other international countries, but they can all be done the same way. It would just be a matter of bringing in another map and showing that country's location. The map visuals are pretty sweet. They're pretty smooth. Typically with the map visual, you do need to have locations on the within your data sets. Those locations being states, the names of states that can be easily associated with the states within the map, definitely within the United States map. But if we were looking at, or we were using a European map, you know, the provinces or whatever their areas are called in those particular countries, those names would need to be spelled out. Now we can't show, put my hand over my microphone. We can't show actual abbreviations, but the thing about the abbreviations themselves within data sets would need to be in the table with the actual proper name, so that the abbreviation could be shown on a map. We're not going to get too deep into that, because that's not what this is all about. This is just a report, a video, a class on creating a Power BI report, not necessarily just creating a map visual or the map visuals class. If you guys are having any issues, or if you are having any issues creating the maps within the class, you know, just send me over send me over a message within the portal, and we'll get that taken care of. We'll communicate that with you. I'm not going to try to get the work done for you, but you'll be able to get some clarification on what needs to happen within your map. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually trying to drop a slicer over the map. I know that it's possible. I haven't done it in a while. May need to go in and do a little bit of research to remember how I did this, but I can drop this visual on top of the map. And the reason, so as you can tell, it's there, but what I don't want to happen is every time I click on the drop down of the map, or every time I click on the actual states visualization, the actual calendar disappears or the drop down years disappear. That's not what I want to have happen. So I've got to go and do a little bit more research to make to remember how to do this. And that's the case with a lot of what we do in creating Power BI reports. You're not expected to know, every step of how to make something happen, how to create a visual. You're not expected to know every visual, every calculation that makes that visual work. As long as you know how to go find the information, as long as you know how to find the information and know what information you're looking for, it won't take you very long in order to make that happen. So I'm steady playing with this thing, and after a while, you'll get to the point you'll say, hey, I'm tired of playing with this. This is not what I want to do. And when I say not what you want to do is spend it, I mean you don't want to spend a whole lot of time on one or two visuals. Eventually, what you're going to want to, if it's a visual that you have to have, you want to go in, you want to do some research, whether you go into YouTube and search it, or whether you go to one of your resource books and get a better understanding of how that visualization works, or how that calculation, how that measure works, or that calculated column work. But now it's really now a matter, what we're doing now is a matter of real estate, Power BI real estate, the report development real estate. How much space do we really have in order to make this work? And the reason why I'm really trying to get this calendar on top of this map is because if I can get the calendar on top of the map, that means I'll be able to get two visuals on one and not have to and save some room for another visual. So as we see, the calendar on the map, or the date slicer on the map, is working. When we select a particular year, we can see that the colors or the densities are changing based on the year selection. Now, so here's the deal. This is not just something that just happened here in the map. In order to get these different densities, these variations, basically I had to create a variable measure saying, if this happened, if that happened, then give me this result. And that is the measure that I brought in and placed in consumed megawatt hours. So that's what's really making this whole thing work as far as the colors. The color scheme is pretty slick, but you can bring in values that are already in the map, but what it will do is it'll just give you a solid blue color, or whatever color you select. You don't have to have this blue color. You can change these colors to be whatever colors you want them to be. But these are pretty much the standard colors here, given that the NRG logo has some blue in it. I thought it was kind of cool to keep the default colors here that we get using Power BI, because one, it saves some time, and two, it looks pretty sweet. So I'm just playing around here. What I'm doing now is I went into interactions, and basically what I'm trying to do is say that there are going to be interactions, there are not going to be interactions. Just trying to remember, what did I do in order to overlay this map visual. And as you can tell, the calendar right now is not overlaying on the map visual. So what it's doing now is it's taking up some real estate. It's taking up some report page space, some real estate. And that's not what I want, because I want to bring in a couple more visuals. And I said before in other classes, other videos, I try to keep the visuals somewhere between 4 and 6. I believe 4 and 6 would be pretty cool, a pretty good amount of visuals on a page. Now, if you go back to previous classes, previous videos, you'll see, he said between 4 and 6, but he's got 8 or 10. And, that is fact. As long as you are able to make your report look good, at the end of the day, that's what you want your report to look good. You don't want to show too much information. You don't want to make it seem too jumbled up and have, like it's a page full of pictures. That's not what you want. So, as long as you can make your report look good, your style could be, between 5 and 9 videos or 7 and 10 videos. It just depends. But at the end of the day, you want your report to look good. When you publish a report, it's going to publish out to the web, not necessarily to the public web, but it's going to publish out to the intranet within your organization or within the organization that you are creating this report for. And it's going to have a website type feel, a website type effect, and you want to make sure that it blends in well with whatever that company's marketing theme is, color structure is, and all that. As you know, I like to make sure that my colors are similar to the colors of the organization. I like to bring in the organization's logo. There have been times where I've been asked, not to bring in the logo, just because it takes up real estate, not because it's not a good look or a good feel, but just because it takes up real estate. And the client may say, the client did say, hey, we can use that space for something else. Let's bring this. I need another visualization. So let's bring another visualization in, as opposed to bringing in this logo, because we know who the organization is, and we're not necessarily trying to sell the organization. Using the Power BI will sell the viewers of the Power BI report on the logo, on the report, or on the company based on the logo, because everybody within the company is already associated, or already employees or employers, or already associated with the organization. Now, so that brings me to another point. When you are creating Power BI reports and you publish your report, the report is only going to be visible to those within the organization. What does that mean, T? That means that unless, in order to be able to view the report, in order to view a standard published report, the person trying to view the report must have an email domain name of that particular company. So here, what I'm doing is I'm bringing in the logo. Here's that logo that I was speaking of, and as I was saying before, the reason why I was pretty much kind of cool with leaving the color scheme of the default blues is because we've got some blue within the logo, and with that blue being within the logo, the colors up within the visualizations kind of coordinate with the color, that blue that's within the logo. Of course, there's some yellow, there's some pink. We're gonna probably try a couple of different colors, but to be honest, when you start adding too many colors within a Power BI report, it kind of starts looking like a coloring book, and that's not what we're looking for. So here again, it's what we're doing here is it's about the real estate, and bringing the different values in. The values we brought in, the 8741, 8904, 8580 are the stock prices that we have brought in. We don't have a date slicer, so that stock price is going to be pretty consistent. It's not going to necessarily change unless we bring in a date slicer. Otherwise, we'll get the current date, and if we open this report, let's say tomorrow, and we don't have a date slicer on here, the only way for the prices to change would be to do a refresh of the entire report. We do a refresh on the entire report, then it would change. But otherwise, we would need to add a date slicer so that we can say, hey, this is the date, and then the report will reflect whatever the stock price is, the close, high, and low on that particular day. Let's see here. So now we are playing with real estate. We're playing with the real estate, just trying to see where visuals will fit within the real estate. So we're just copying a visual, pasting a visual. We're gonna probably shrink a visual, expand a visual, just to see what spacing looks like between visualizations. Here we've got the consumed megawatt hour. Here we've got the generated megawatt hour. And again, we are just playing with space and visualization. We may use these visuals, we may not use these visuals, but at the end of the day, you know, we have a pretty good idea of what we want to do or what we want to see. We know we want to see a map. We know we want to see something dealing with megawatt hours, whether it be consumed megawatt hours or capacity megawatt hours or generated megawatt hours. We know we want to see some type of location, whether it be state location or region location. And then to be able to show some of the financial data, we may want to show the stock close, high, and low. So all of this is working. We're getting some interactions, but let's go back over into the data view. Let's look at the tables. Let's see what data is in these tables that we may want to show in our report. Now, we already know that the data within the table should show the data, whatever data that we pull into the report, because we went a great length in the model view so that we could create the relationships between the tables, so that if there was an action on one table, that there would be interaction on the other table, or on tables that are associated with it, which would mean that the values that are popping up would be associated with whatever the value is in the other table, i.e. Consumed megawatt hour. If we click on state, then consumed megawatt hour should show the consumed megawatt hour for that state. Generated hour, the generated megawatt hour should show the generated megawatt hours for that state. Sum of generated megawatt hours and sum of target megawatt hours that is shown in the bottom left right now bar chart. If a state is selected, we should see that generated megawatt hour and that target megawatt hour for that particular state. So now we're trying to see if this pie chart is going to make sense for us. Based on the pie chart now, we've got consumed megawatt hours by region and forecasted megawatt hours by region. There in our bar chart in the bottom left, we've got sum of megawatt, sum of generated megawatt hour, and sum of target megawatt hour by year. So in the pie chart, we're doing it by region. In the bar chart in the bottom left, we are doing it by, the visualization is by year. In our bar chart, which is the green and yellow up top, we've got consumed megawatt hours, consumed megawatt hours and forecasted megawatt hours by year. Now you say, well, what's the difference between that chart and the bottom chart in the left? The bottom chart in the left, again, is sum of generated megawatt hours and targeted megawatt hours by year. And in the top bar chart, this green and gold bar chart, is showing sum of consumed megawatt hours and forecasted megawatt hours by year. So now, if you are in the energy industry, in the energy sector, this is making sense to you. You're like, hey, you can take a real quick glance at some of the information that you may need, be it megawatt hour, generated megawatt hour, forecasted megawatt hour, targeted megawatt hour, either by year or either by year. Well, you can do it by year, then you can select by state, you can select by region. A lot of different ways that you can look at it at this point. So again, as you always know, building out the real estate is, one, a pet peeve of mine, and two, one of the most important things you can have when it comes to creating a Power BI report, with the exception of creating the proper relationships within the model view. If the model view is not built correctly, the report is not going to function correctly. But as long as the relationships are built correctly, you are going to be able to build out a nice Power BI report. But then it comes down to real estate. And as you can see here, I've changed the real estate. I've changed the bottom left visual to have a pink bar to match the pink in the logo, and not a real good feel, not a real good look. I'm really not feeling it. I want to add a second color, but it's not real. I'm not feeling real good about trying to match that logo. I may have to just keep everything the standard default bluish, with addition to the shades of blue that's in the state map, in the United States map, and let that thing ride, because these additional colors is not giving me the feel that I am looking for. So let's see, I'm just trying to figure out what colors are going to be the colors that I want to use for this particular report. The blues, I think I'm feeling pretty good about the blues, even though they're defaults. I normally stay away from the defaults, but given that there is some blue in the NRG logo, I'm okay with that default blue right now. Do I want to keep it the same shade of royal blue or keep the navy blue? The navy blue looks pretty good. The royal blue, I don't know. I may use it. Not necessarily sure. Let's see, it's blue and it's yellow, even though there's yellow in the logo. Don't necessarily like the yellow. This blue kind of fits the royal blue. So, you know, there's a better fit, there's a better feel here than in the that yellow that we had. So first we were dealing with the model view and making sure the relationships were good. Then we came back and we were dealing with the data view, making sure that we got all the data linked or related as we wanted. Then we come to the report view. And now the report view at the end of the day is what is going to have the final effect, because again, it's going to be published out and individuals are going to be able to see it, and it's going to be looked at like a website or as part of a website. And we definitely want this thing to look good. We don't want this thing to look like a coloring book, which, as you can see, if we use all of the different colors that are inside the logo, it will turn into a coloring book. Please don't tell anybody at NRG Energy that I do not like their logo. That is not the case. However they chose their logo is fine, but building out all of these different colors within the logo in the Power BI report is not giving me a very good feel. So we are moving into the backstretch of this report. We're down to primarily creating the real estate for the report itself, or designing the real estate for the report. And basically, for those that don't know, if you don't know, that just simply means just creating the spacing for this report. I don't think I'm going to do any background colors. You know, just kind of have like the little white flare. So keeping it pretty basic, and the reason why is because there's a lot to this report. We're dealing with a lot of different types of data, from date data to megawatts consumed to generated to targeted. I mean, we're dealing with a lot of different stuff, to plants, and we got stock information in here. We got a lot of information in here. So I don't want to like really water this thing down too much by trying to show too much and then really make it look like it's, you know, again, like a coloring book. the colors that I'm trying to use here are, I'm trying to integrate the colors of the logo. I didn't go too deep into finding out, well, I don't normally go too deep anyway, to finding out what colors the company uses, but I do encourage you when you have your initial meetings or your meetings with your business analyst to see what colors they would like to have in the report. Most companies do have their own color schemes, their own color palettes that they like to use. So you can just grab those, and those could be the colors that you use within the report. As you can see here, I've got some data at the bottom in pink trying to match the colors in the logo, and then have some gold that's matching the colors in the logo. Not necessarily sure that that's the route that I want to go, because there's a lot of colors going. It's a lot going on here. Even though I've got the megawatt hours on one side and the stock information on the other side, there's still just a lot going on. But right now, what I'm trying to do here is see or make sure that the regions slicer, drop down slicer, it's not even a drop down, it's a list slicer, seeing how it's interacting with other visuals when selecting different regions. Of course, Texas is its own region, but when selecting different regions, just trying to see if the interaction, if the other visuals are interacting with one another. It appears so, with the exception of the stock slicer at the bottom, where we're looking at close, high, and low prices for the stock. And that makes pretty good sense, because typically the stock is based on a date or a time, and the time that we're talking about for stock is a day. So it's just a matter of, bringing in a date slicer or some type of slicer that's going to give us a date, so that, or a date or a time period that allow the stock prices to change. Right now, it's a cool visual. We'll get all that figured out here, shortly. Some of generated megawatt hour and some of targeted megawatt hour. And let's see here, didn't really like that. I kind of like this feel here, making the state map bigger. I kind of like that feel. Let's see, we're getting somewhere now. We're getting a pretty good visualization of what this thing could look like real estate wise. We've got pretty good spacing. One thing I like to make sure we do when we create a Power BI report is the spacing. The spacing down here with the numbers at the bottom, which is the megawatt hours and the stock information, that's kind of bothering me a little bit. We'll take care of that, because there's a larger space in between the megawatt hours and the stock, which is kind of throwing me, I didn't say throwing me off, but it's just tricking my eye a little bit. I like to have everything spaced out evenly, distributed evenly, and that would be a horizontal distribution. I know why I did it though, because I have the stock information on one side and the megawatt hours on the other side, but it's still trial and error. We'll see how it works out. We'll see, how we can get this to where, everything is distributed accordingly. Let's see. I really don't like everything being, not everything, but the megawatt hours and the stock numbers, the different colors, that's kind of giving that coloring book type feel, a coloring book type effect. So I definitely want to address that as we are coming down the pipe here, trying to finish up the report that we have. And please understand that, I mean, we just went through this report, built this report in maybe an hour and a half, maybe. So, you know, that's not something you would typically do on a project. It'll typically take you a little bit more time, and we would spend more time. But of course, as we see when we get down to the end of this project, there are going to be some things that we could have did, not necessarily should have did, but you know, because this report is primarily just showing you how to create a Power BI report. See, just doing a little formatting here, changing fonts, moving data labels. The data labels are at the bottom. Like for instance here, the data label would be sum of forecasted megawatt bandwidth, megawatt hour, I'm sorry. And then we can remove that data label and create a title. And that's what we have on the other, on the consumed megawatt hour. It is, we use the title. And like for instance here, we're going to forecasted megawatt hour as the title, and then we're going to bold the title. We're going to come back and remove the data label. So we can still kind of see the data label at the bottom, which pushes the number up just slightly a little bit. So we're going to remove that so that it would be, it would be coordinating with the consumed megawatt hour label, height and sizing of the font. So coming back here, we're creating a title here again, and we're calling it close. We're going to bold it. We're going to go to the visual. We're going to go to call out value. And we go to call out value. We're going to go to category label, and we're going to don't show the category label. We're going to come back to the next, the high. We're going to go to category label. We're going to take the category label off. We're going to come over to general, and we're going to add the title as opposed to having a label. So we're going to remove the label again from the average load. So we're going to come over to title. We're going to give it a title. We're going to call the title low. We're going to bold it. Then we're going over to the visual, and we are going to remove the category label, turn off the category label. So now we don't have any category labels. We want to make sure all of these guys are on the same horizontal line. If we look at the pink, the pink numbers are slightly higher than the yellow numbers. So we want to definitely make sure we come back and format the numbers to where they're on the same line. We want to make sure they're on the same line. We want to have an even distribution between each one of the values. We're making the values, making the fonts, actually making the box a little smaller so they don't look so, you know, color bookish. And that font is 175. The height, on the pink numbers, we can probably make the height about the same height, but the width, we're not able to make them the same width because the megawatt hours are going to be slightly bigger because those guys are 5 digits and our stock numbers are 4 digits. But what we can do is we can make those values smaller, and we can come back over to the stock items, the stock values, and we can make those values smaller as well to match the value sizes of the megawatt hours. And that's what we're doing here. We'll finish that up. And now all of the values are the same size. They don't look too color bookish. And now we want to make that box a little bit bigger
but you know, is it really too big? Not exactly sure. Let's see, we want to change that width. We want to see how small we can go with that width because we don't want it to be real wide or too wide. Now that's a pretty good line to place all of the numbers on. Try to place all the numbers on that same line using the red dotted lines that were there. All in the same line. I think that is what it is as well. So that 85 is all the way on the right. The 696 is all the way on the left. So if we want to align these and distribute these numbers, what we can do is we can do a horizontal distribution. So we're going to format, we're going to align these three, we're going to distribute horizontally on the stocks, and that worked. So now we are just trying to make sure that our column chart is even with the numbers there at the bottom, the high, low, and the close, the high and the low. And again, it's all about the real estate. It's about, you know, the placement of the visual and what looks best to the naked eye. So we're getting the pie chart aligned to the right, and now we're going to come over to the map visual. And let's see, there's some thought processing going on here. Is the map visual actually in the right place? Let's see, let's line up the regions visual, the regions drop down slicer. We made the even to the right so it's even with the outer edge of the region visual is even with the outer edge of the map visual. All of those different colors at the bottom is kind of bothering me. So we're gonna make all of those colors pink. Yeah, I kind of like that a lot better than just having those two different colors. And I think I like the pink better than I like the yellow. Let's see here. What are we gonna do next? Is it spacing for the numbers at the bottom being the megawatt hours and the stock information? It's going to be distribution horizontally. Are we going to make these cards smaller? So I'm really kind of digging what we have here. So now it's just a matter of how we're going to format this. Looking at the card, the visual, and looking out at the label. So we are moving on down the home stretch here, and just at this point, it's all a matter of formatting. I believe the real estate we are probably about, if I had to guess, maybe about 85% confident in where the real estate is lying, where the individual visualizations are on the Power BI report. Let's see. I believe it's a matter now of just trying to figure out the formatting, figure out to make sure we have the real estate where we want it. Right now what we're doing is we're formatting the card visual down here in the consumed megawatt hour. We're dropping a little drop shadow behind the card. How does that look? That border kind of bothers me. It's a little thick. I don't normally like my borders. Well, I don't normally put borders in that thick. I can't say I don't like them that thick. But we'll get all of that figured out here. Visual border, come back down. The width is too thick. So let's make the width, bring the width pixels back down to 1. You know I like to round my corners at about a 10. So I'm gonna do that with each one of the visuals. I'm gonna come back into the visual border, rounded corners to a 10 on the forecasted megawatt hours. I wanna make that to be the same look as the consumed megawatt hours with the drop shadow. Come back to the close, and we want to show the shadow, show that drop shadow. We want the rounded corners to be a 10. Come back over to the high, and we want the rounded corners at a 10 as well. And it's just for uniformity and, you know, looks, aesthetics, and appearance. Again, for the low card, we are going to make that rounded corners at a 10. We're going to open it, we'll show the drop shadow. Now we're getting a little bit better personality, getting a little more personality from the report now with the cars and the drop shadows, with the rounded corners. Again, it's a matter now of just understanding, you know, we're trying to see if we've got the proper spacing. What I'm really looking at here is, as far as the real estate, one, the spacing between the numbers at the bottom. What I want to do is I want the spacing to be the same between each. So we're going to go to the distribution to be horizontal, and that gives us equal spacing between each one of the numbers at the bottom, each one of the cards at the bottom. Another thing that I'm looking at is we've got a lot going on the right side with the bar chart and with the bar chart, the pie chart, and the column chart, with the U.S. map just on one side. So the question then is, does the sizing of the U.S. map really offset everything that's going on over on the right, or do we need to bring one of those visuals over to the left from the right, so that we could have two visuals in the middle, and in the middle on the left, and two visuals in the middle on the right? The U.S. map, I kind of like that sizing, but again, it really does seem to have an imbalance. What I could do is remove the pie chart and then stretch the bar chart out. And I think that would give it a little bit more balance when looking at the U.S. map, because the U.S. map is, it does look pretty good as a big visual, as opposed to a small visual such as here at the pie chart. But now that's what it's all of a matter of. You know, we're gonna take the text on the pie chart, and we're going to see if it looks good on the inside. And because the pie chart is so small, we can't really see, or I don't like saying can't, but we're not able to see that information on the inside. If we put it on the outside, we're not able to see the entire visual. So in order to be able to see that whole visual and the legend within the visual, we're probably going to have to flip the side of the bar chart and the pie chart so that the pie chart can spread out a little wider, because we need some space. There we go. We're getting some space, but we still are not able to read the legend. We know what it's saying: consumed megawatt hour, forecasted megawatt hour, but we're not necessarily able to really read it. We can move it to the top. We can move that legend to the top. We can move the legend to the left. So now that's kind of what we're going to be playing with here. let's see, within the effects, shadow, we don't need a shadow. The visual, come down to the legend, and do we center right? Do we top center? Do we top right? Do we top left? We are going to top left, and we are getting a better view of the legend, but we're still not able to read it. So we need to, we really need to spread this pie chart. We need to spread it out so that we're able to read more of the pie chart. If we make it too small, make the bar chart too small, it's really not a good bar chart look. But let's see how this is about as wide as we need this pie chart. We need the pie chart to be about this wide in order to be able to read the legend and be able to read the values of the pie chart. So let's see here. We are going to give this thing give it proper naming, forecasted space, megawatt hour. Not necessarily have to put by region, because in the title we see consumed megawatt hours by region. So we don't have to say by region twice. Now we're just trying to get some spacing. Of course, this bar chart is going to be too small, so we are going to have to place this in another location if we want to continue to use it, or we can get rid of the bar chart and we can keep the column chart where it is, keep the pie chart where it is, and then make the pie chart and the column chart the same width. Or we could do the same thing with the bar chart. Now playing with it here, we're going to bring the bar chart down so we can spread it out a little bit. And now we can make it as wide as the pie chart. Or what we can do is, I don't want to do that. We can bring the US map over and take the pie chart to the top left. And now we're seeing, we get to see the entire pie chart. Want to make sure that that real estate is where it needs to be. Going to spread it out even with the column chart. We're going to bring the US map and we're going to make it as wide as the bar chart. Line it up here. So now we are getting somewhere. We're able to read all of the titles, read all of the legends. We've got the map visuals, a little smaller than where we want to get it, but it's pretty good. What I'm doing now is I'm going to move the map visual down, because I really don't like having a column chart and a bar chart side by side if I don't have to. In this particular case, I mean, there are cases where I will put the bar chart and put a bar chart and a column chart side by side, but in this case, I kind of want those opposite and vertical, because we've got two non-column, two non-bars, which is the pie chart and the US map, and I can make those guys vertical as well. I mean, diagonal as well. And now I'm kind of digging the spacing arrangement that we've created on this report, with the pie chart on top, the column chart on bottom, the bar chart on top, and the US map on bottom. So the column chart and the bar, both of those dealing with linear visualizations. They're not on the same line, and they're diagonal from each other. The two visualizations that are not linear, they are diagonal from each other as well. We're able to read the entire pie chart, and we're able to read the values associated with the pie chart. So there's some things that there's some other values that we could have added, some other visualizations we could have added, but at the end of the day, what we added was the region. We didn't add a date, and that's okay. But anyway, so that is this lesson in the Power Money Mondays with Power of the BI. And I just want to say thank you for joining in, and I look forward to seeing you win again in the next video.